Hey guys, I'm back, and I'm back after only a couple days. What's that all about? Well, some things have come up, some things that have got my mind sort of spinning and turning, so that I felt the need to hit a couple topics, and I'm gonna do this with I think, a particular level of reticence, um, because right, there are some topics for which well, it just feels like a touchy thing, a dangerous thing to go down because you're going to get yourself in trouble with somebody. You can't win. Uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is often where the interesting is. And for whom I am probably not the person. Probably bad optics. I'm probably not a good representative, right? If we're going to discuss, I don't know, feminism or African American studies, I might be, who the hell cares what I got to say about it, right? The optics aren't great. I am part of that crowd. These things are reacting against. You're an ordinary white guy. What the hell have you got? Okay. And you can say, well, that's unfair. You have a right to your opinion too. Yes, I know, but there are probably better messengers on certain topics than myself. And if you don't recognize that, right, not saying you, but I mean, I think I have to recognize sometimes, and there's two reactions. One reaction is, well, don't get into that stuff, Dave. The other reaction is maybe it's more of a reason to get into it. Maybe those uncomfortable conversations are what we've been avoiding for too long. Maybe we need to talk about stuff like that. Now, this isn't crazy that way. It only touches on some things, and because of the nature of the format that I do, because I don't edit and I burn, and I just go at it. There is a greater chance, and it's almost for sure, that I'm going to make some mistake, that I'm going to state something perhaps in a way that I shouldn't, and that it might not live long or live well. 3 years from now, this may come off sounding terrible, right? All of those pitfalls are out there, and yet I think there's something to be said for the spontaneity. Maybe comes from my past, because I love jazz music and I play a lot of jazz, and I played a lot of jazz. Is that the idea? One of the wonderful things about jazz is it's being in the moment, and that it's not perfect. The people that I learned from celebrated the imperfections. The fact that this was a thing done in real time. It reminds me also, some of the most interesting stuff sometimes is things that aren't necessarily so obvious, where there's more gray. My wife, I think I've mentioned before, my wife is an attorney, and when I was getting to know her, we were just dating. I mean, I remember saying, okay, well, what kind of law are you into? I'm just curious, I was just curious. I wanted to learn about her. And it was like, it was like she was into antitrust, and later that turned into bank regulations, but she was, antitrust law and regulatory law. And I was like, wow, that, you pardon me for saying so, but it's kind of dry stuff, right? It just doesn't sound terribly exciting. And she was like, oh no, it's much more fun. And I thought that was interesting. And I'm like, really? Tell me why. I want to know why. Why is that more interesting? And she goes, well, when you deal with black letter law, right, everything is just, right, there's no wiggle room. Okay? That's pretty straight ahead. She goes, but the fun stuff is any area of the law where it's a movable feast. It's changing all the time. Standards are changing. The law is changing. It changes depending upon where the society is going at any particular time. And you've got to stay abreast of that and stay with that. There's a range of things the law could be. It's not etched in stone. It's not cut. It's not dried. It's not. There's the fun. It's moving. Things now are relativist. And being able at any particular time, trying to figure out where it is, because it's always moving, is hard. It was a good argument. Not surprised. She makes good arguments. That's what she does for a living. And that occurred to me. That's, again, where the interesting is. So I'm going to hit you a couple things today. And these couple things I want you to keep in mind. They made me think, and because I wasn't sure that I was getting it right, I talked to a lot of people to get other. I needed input. I needed some guidance. If I wasn't sure, I wanted to go to people and say, people I respected or people I thought might have an answer, and say, I'm leaning this way, but I don't want to get it wrong. I really don't want to get it wrong. I don't want there to be something that I'm missing, because everyone's, we're all prisoners of, whatever culture we came up in, and, the way we've lived our lives, to assume that, what's happened to me is what's happened to everyone. No, there's such a wide range of experience. And it would be incredibly, that's where we get into a lot of trouble, is just doing, well, it was always like this for me, so it must be like that for the man in South Central LA, or on a reservation in South Dakota, or some other situation that's not at all like what you live. No, it must be the same. No, it's not only it almost must not be the same. You don't know what that life was like. There's a reason people have, right? It's why we got to travel. It's why okay. So let me hit you with a couple things. First one was, a couple of these go on through, are connected to conversations I've had on Threads, which is the Instagram, Twitter alternative, because Twitter is increasingly, I'm off it, and I've been off it now for a little over a year, and it was a good decision. Elon's a bad guy, frankly, a very dangerous cat. He's a radicalized cat, and that's not a good guy. Anyway, so I'm off his thing, but there are conversations that go on now. The first example I'm going to throw at you, I think it's an opportunity to learn how to diffuse a lot of arguments. I didn't break the code. I knew something was wrong. I sensed that I had an inkling, but then I talked to somebody. Okay, so a lot of that going to be coming up. But I saw someone post on Threads in reaction to people talking about audiobooks as opposed to, I don't know, good old-fashioned reading a book. And all the person said, and this probably was part of the reason it turned into such a thing, was that doing an audiobook is not the same as reading a book. They're different. And that was about it. That you can't say they're the same thing. They're different things. On the face of it, that would seem it would seem that that's not controversial. And yet it was very controversial. That statement, which to me, my impression was that's very innocuous. These two things aren't the same. They're not. Okay. They're not the same. This person got pilloried. And I want to be careful about this, because I'm not saying someone's right and someone's wrong here. But immediately this person got attacked. And it was, the arguments were, well, there's really no difference, because you're taking in information, or why do you have to say that the only way that's legitimate to do something is the old way of doing it? Can there be new ways of doing it that are just as legitimate? A lot of that, a lot of anger. People saying, how ableist of you, because some people can't sit in a chair or sit still, or what about, and they're blind. Well, you think, well, there's Braille, yeah, but no. So, what an assumption to make that everyone should simply. Some people can't do that. Are you knocking them? So, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Part of my response was, geez, you didn't say any of that. Do you proactively have to say before you say something, I'm not out to get blank, 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 blank. I've got to proactively state that? Otherwise, I'm doing something bad to somebody? You can't be agnostic on a subject? Being agnostic on a subject means you're an oppressor? Can't be right. But maybe I'm taking it too far. I wasn't, and I might have been. So I wasn't sure. So I went and I talked to a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist. And I said, I don't want to pick your brain professionally. But they said, you want to pick my brain professionally? I said, yeah, pretty much. So what do you got? I said, well, is it okay? Yes, it's okay. Yes, it's okay. Is it a personal matter? No. He goes, yeah, personal matter, you got to make an appointment. Right? No, I know. No, it's not. I'm curious about, if you see this, what, am I wrong to have the impression I'm having? Am I taking it too far? Are these people taking it too far? Did the original person say something wrong? He goes, oh, this is great. I said, yeah, this is great. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, you've hit on something. Do you know what you've hit on? I said, no. That's why I'm talking to you. I don't know. He goes, no, you've hit on something. So check this out. He goes, now the original statement, he goes, want to be critical? Let's be critical. Let's be democratic. Let's be critical about everybody. He goes, the original person could have been a little clearer about exactly what they were saying. And he goes, I see later on, because this person was attacked, they started to try to clarify their thoughts, but boy, the avalanche had come down. They were just digging a hole. They weren't getting out of it. I said, yeah. He goes, okay. He goes, but okay, that could have been clearer. He goes, but you're seeing a thing that happens all the time. People do it all the time. And he goes, I'm talking about really the people responding here in this case. He goes, the first person is stating a qualitative difference. That such a thing and such a thing have a difference, a qualitative difference. I said, right. He goes, so if he goes, you take a book and it's a cloudy October afternoon, it's kind of chilly, and you get a hot cup of whatever it is you like to drink, coffee or tea or whatever, and you're in a sweater, and you sit in a chair, you have some time, and you open the book, and you can feel, there's that tactile feeling of the pages, and you sit there and you're reading the book, and there's no sound, there's just, it's that inner monologue is, the author is in your head, talking to you. Look at that. Shows you how long that book's been around. He goes, right, that is a particular kind of experience, right? I said, right. He goes, it's not the same as someone reading to you. I said, well, yeah, right, that's different. One is reading and the other one is being read to. He goes, right. He goes, your dad was an English teacher. I said, yes, he was. He goes, he would have made that distinction. I said, oh, yes, he would have. And I said, I do too. Words mean things, don't they? He goes, yeah, words mean things. And he goes, so there's a qualitative difference between one and the other. I said, right. He goes, now, let's go further. He goes, studies have been done where they did brain scans. People reading a book, people being read to. He goes, guess what? No difference. No difference. The same parts of the mind are being activated in both situations. And your ability to retain the information, the same. There's no difference. If we're talking about from the point of view of taking in the information, right? From that point of view, there's no difference whatsoever. Right? I said, okay. He goes, your son's going to college. I said, yeah, he's going to college. He goes, he's going to get textbooks and you're just reading and you do the reading. I said, right. And he goes, then he goes to the lecture hall and they talk to him. Same thing. Same part of the mind, same ability to take in information. You don't need the book. You don't need this, right, to take in the information. I said, right. He goes, so, in a very real sense, there's no difference. But in another sense, from a purely subjective of what you're doing and how you feel about it, oh, there's a big difference. That's why there are preferences. Some people want to read either on their phone or on a tablet or with a book. There are different preferences for that. And other people like an audiobook and they're both fine. I said, yeah, I'm not knocking one of the other. He goes, right. He goes, but that's it. He goes, there's the difference. One is just saying these are different experiences, which is true. But people will mistake someone saying, oh, there's a qualitative difference, and mistake that for a value judgment. That's the difference. She goes, all those people getting upset. She goes, yeah. He goes, what? They felt insulted. I said, yes, because they thought the original person was saying reading in this form is superior to the audiobook. They felt that was what was being said. I said, it wasn't said. And he goes, no. But they thought it was. They have decided, either because of their own, maybe they've heard this argument too many times before, they're like, well, I can tell where this is going. Except it didn't go there. So they've got a built-in prejudice. They're like, I can break the code. I know what this person's really... They're not saying it, but they're saying. But nothing was implied. Okay? I find this stuff fascinating. And my conversation, I found very illuminating. And think about how many times that happens. And I think it happens a lot. There is that difference. Someone could say one thing isn't this other thing. Not saying one's better than the other. Not saying anything about that at all. Not even going there. Wasn't saying that that this is the only way that you should take in information, that you should only use this, that anything that isn't this isn't real and isn't legitimate. Didn't say that, doesn't think that. I don't think that. But being read to isn't the same as reading. It doesn't change anything intellectually. Not as a student, it doesn't change anything. It's the same. You don't get the information. I don't care. You don't have to do this to get the information. You get the information all sorts of ways. It's fine. All right? So thinking but the assumption that there's a value judgment being made, and this is what the value judgment is. It's not saying this is superior, and therefore all people who have whatever disability and can't use that, therefore they don't get as good at. No one's saying that. People take in the information any way they can. Whatever the issue is, there's probably a way around it, and the workaround is absolutely just as good as any other way of taking in the information, as long as you're doing it, as long as you are taking in the information, right? The method by which we transport it isn't. I took a truck, I took an airplane. I mean, did you both get to Chicago? Yes. Okay, well, you got to Chicago. I mean, okay. So I found that fascinating. And I see it, now that I've been made aware of this, I see it a lot. Now, are there times, this person made another great point, are there times when there are people out there not making good faith arguments? I said, tons. He goes, right. Is it a good thing that we have a baloney detector? Is it a good thing that we question what someone's motivation is? Because that's good too. There's nothing wrong with that. And if a person does make a good faith explanation, we should be able to accept that. He goes, none of that was happening online. I said, right. None of that was happening online. There was going to be no explanation. You were guilty, that was it. And it's online, it's people chatting. I understand. But that difference, that fundamental, right, being able to make, maybe, and you can say, well, those differences are immaterial. It's all reading. I would fight with that one a little bit, because I do believe that words have meaning. I still believe in the Oxford comma, right? My dad was an English teacher. My favorite people growing up were English teachers. You can use some other word to describe the taking in of the information, because the taking of the information, again, is the same. But those different terms mean different things, and the differences, though you may say, well, that makes no difference at all, and it's irrelevant. Well, it's irrelevant to you. It might not be irrelevant to somebody else. And the fact that there are these preferences, there are people who, still want to use the older media, or people that want to use them more, some like one more than the other. Well, then there's obviously a difference. If there are preferences, there's going to be a difference. They're appreciating a difference. Okay. I thought it was interesting, and I think it's something, once you realize that people are doing it, that they are conflating, simply stating that one thing isn't like the other, people assume and are very offended that you have, for 1 second, possibly would have expressed that you think one thing is better than the other. Nothing can be better than anything else. Oh, okay. That's a whole other discussion. But I found it fascinating. Now, we're going to move on. And I think these subjects are slightly, they're related slightly in that it requires some digging. What might seem an easy answer is not easy. This one's the real tough one. I want to talk about Raygun at the Olympics. I love the Olympics, by the way. Olympics in Paris was great. The Olympics, every Olympiad has had this for many years now. They'll have what they call demonstration sports. They'll have a sport that they try out to see if it will, I suppose, be popular, or, and the next Olympics might take it or might not, and they come back and forth. I remember baseball was at one point an Olympic demonstration sport. That's how we got synchronized swimming. I think it's how we got a couple various sports. But anyway, this year, France decided to do breakdancing as an Olympic sport, as a demonstration sport. Now, next Olympics are in LA. LA isn't doing breakdancing. Okay, fine. That's not that important, honestly. But they decided to do it. Great. Okay, fair enough. Sports that are a combination of art and sport are always tough anyway, because I think right now it becomes subjective, and there's judges, and the standard, by what culture, by who decides these things get tricky, whether it could be figure skating in the Winter Olympics, or some of the gymnastics events, certainly. Those things can get a little tough because there is a subjective element. Anyway, there was breakdancing, and tons of people, and a lot of them very clearly very, very good at what they do, and so forth. Now, Raygun is an Australian woman. She's in her 30s, so she's much older than most of the people doing this. But I believe she has advanced degrees. My understanding is, I don't know if she has a PhD. I don't know if she's Dr. Raygun, but she's certainly a master's or something like that. And she's cultural studies, and she's a college professor. This is not a dumb person, all right? And there's some question about how this happened, but the point is she was at the Olympics representing Australia. And this is where it gets tough, because I am not enough of an expert on breakdancing to know what's good and what's not. I'll admit that my knowledge of breakdancing goes back 40 years ago, when it was in the Bronx, and it was an outgrowth or part of hip-hop culture and all that. But I'm not necessarily a devotee of it. I'm sure it's changed much over the years. Most things do. And I know it's become international. Okay. So I don't have expertise. Right? So mea culpa. But I wasn't alone in this. A lot of folks saw her, and it seemed that she just didn't know how to. And she was doing some kind of interpretive dance, and she seemed out of her depth. And although I had that impression, I think a lot of people watching it had that impression. You can't, before you sit there and go, oh, those terrible people, how come they're so mean, and they think it has to be from 1982, or it's not real. It's not. Okay, you might want to go there and say what terrible folks we are, but the Olympic judges across the board gave her no points. The scores were 0.0 by unanimously. So it didn't land well with a general audience, but the people judging it, it didn't go over well. It just didn't go over well. Okay. And I have to admit, look, she was game, and she went at it, and, there was a sort of optimism to what she was doing. She was giving it, her best shot. I don't know, but I guess that's what her best shot is. Some people, I think, just respond to a degree of enthusiasm, and think that's it. That's all you really need. As long as she's enthusiastic, well, that's all that counts. I would think a lot of us don't think that. After seeing it, it reminded me of. I started thinking about cultural appropriation, and where cultural appreciation, being influenced by a culture, where is that line before it becomes cultural appropriation, where you just steal something? Is there that? Reminds me of my wife's legal work. A lot of gray. There is, and I don't think there is a line. I think it's very fuzzy. There's a dividing point I don't know where the dividing point is. I don't know if anybody knows where the dividing point is. It's a very, very, very tricky subject. But it seemed to me to be sort of a slap in the face to the people who originated this. It didn't seem right. And before I went too far down that road, I started to try to let me think of an example, not with Australians and hip-hop culture of the Bronx, and can I think of some other example? And the one that occurred to me was, what if I took up the bagpipes bagpipes became my thing. And I got really into bagpipes. A lot of bagpipe practicing. And I got somewhat okay at bagpipes. I was starting to get, I could do it and I could get, okay, I'm all right at bagpipes. If then, with my slightly above beginner level of bagpipe ability, if I was then to go to Edinburgh and see the people who did bagpiping there and started correcting them and telling them they were wrong, or saying, no, this is the way you bagpipe, to the people in Scotland, that would be tone deaf and condescending, and to me, deeply wrong. Right? You wouldn't do that. Now, I've been told, I've postulated this online, and I've got told that was a terrible analogy because, there are other instruments like bagpipes in other countries, and no culture 100% owns something. My reaction there were a couple things. One is, boy, you're really missing the point because you're getting pedantic about various bagpipes. It's an analogy. We're trying to make a general statement here. But even that, saying that something is 100% owned by a culture, well, it's not 100%, well, nothing is. So way to move the goalpost on that one. So, and I'm not suggesting, right? This is where stuff gets funky. There will be people, if you say, well, you should have some respect for the culture from which something came from, there will be people arguing with you and go, no. Well, then, in that case, any culture is just genetic. It's owned by your genetics. Decide that you own it because you were just born with the right genes in the right place, and now. Again, I think that's a ridiculous exaggeration. No one's saying that. I wasn't saying, certainly. No one 100%, a culture doesn't 100% own something. So ownership is probably a bad term, but maybe a better term might be authorship. A culture certainly is as a community, is an author of style and possibly clothes and possibly kinds of music. Well, not 100% of everybody did. Okay, what number would you like? 62.8, 74.3. What are we talking about? If you wanted to study Louis Armstrong, you would say, no, I'm going to study Louis Armstrong, but whatever I do, I'm not going to discuss New Orleans. If you want to understand the person, you have to understand the culture they came out of. What were the values? What was this person surrounded by? We've done that forever. It's how we understand all sorts of historic figures. We have to understand their time and their place and the things that they were, what was in the air around them, what was the zeitgeist, so we can understand them better. We don't have to agree with them, but we at least understand what it was they were in. Context is important, right? So, I went and found a friend. I know a guy who's a music reviewer and very into hip hop and new breakdancing. And I said, okay, man, I'm only going to get myself in trouble here, and I don't want to. I don't. I know where this is a bridge too far. I need help. And he goes, what do you got, man? I said, well, Raygun. He goes, oh, yeah, Raygun. I said, yeah. What's your take on Raygun? Now, I thought he was going to be very angry. He was, and he turned me on to some other people. Some of them were very angry. I've given my life to this art form, and this thing over there is using the name but isn't it. It made them upset. There were some guys who were very upset, and ladies. The person I talked to said, look, On one, yeah, is it, he goes, well, look, do you hate when Kenny G, these people say, oh, I love jazz, I listen to Kenny G records? I said, yes, yes, I do. And the reason for that is, I said, because I said it's distantly related to jazz, but it's not, it's now morphed into a whole other thing. Now you can like that. And he goes, right. And he goes, right. So the more time goes by, and literally, in some cases, the more distance that happens. You take a particular form and you put it in another continent with those people and their values, and they're now going to turn it into a new thing. I said, yeah. He goes, now, if there are tendrils, if there's a connection between the original thing bubbling over here and, ooh, tendrils going over to the new thing bubbling over here, there's a connection. Now, you could say they're at least related to each other. I said, right. Yes, I can understand that. He goes, but at the same time, they are different. We're back to our qualitative. Right? They're different. He goes, would you say Ornette Coleman and Louis Armstrong played the same music? I said, no, they did not. Are they both called jazz? Yes, they are. I said, but there's such a difference in where they were at the time. So he goes, right. He goes, right. But is there a connection? I said, there is a connection. There is a through line to that. He goes, right. He goes, I think the key is the through line. And when the through line breaks and it's snapped and those tendrils are now, okay, now this has become a separate thing and you should discuss it as a separate thing. And he goes, a lot of people will see what happened at the Olympics and go, the connection's broken. He goes, at least with her. He says, with the others, I don't think so. A lot of other people seem to get it and it was great. He goes, but I think we want our music to be accepted, not music. He says, we want this dance form, to be accepted by more and more people. To do that, if it's going to be accepted by more and more people, then it's going to go international. And that means it's going to go farther and farther away from the source, and it's going to evolve and it's going to change. And you have to accept that. And if you can accept that, we're good to go. You're going to be fine. He goes, but a lot of people can't. He goes, yes, it gets annoying when it gets on the Raygun level, right? He goes, I know folks, and I think I used the term slap in the face before. I know folks, he goes, said exactly what it was. They felt injured by it. They felt that this was, cultural appropriation at this point. This is a person who had not paid their dues, as it were. I said, he goes, didn't you run into that when you were going to school and learning jazz? I said, oh yeah. There was a ton of that. And there was tons of stuff about Berkeley in the 80s. Wow. There was stuff about, if someone liked Coltrane or someone liked Michael Brecker, sax player teachers I know would say, oh, you like Brecker? Well, are you listening to Coltrane? And they're like, they go, well, you better be listening to Coltrane because all of Mike's stuff comes out of Coltrane. And they go, and guess what? Once you get to Coltrane, are you done? 1960s, that's it? What about everything that led to Coltrane? And in fact, you're not listening to Sonny Rollins, you're not listening to Bird. You really ought to be listening to Coleman Hawkins and Lester Young in the 1930s. Because you can't build a building. You can't make the foundation of your own building be the 34th floor of another building. You can't build a building on the 34th floor. You got to go back to the beginning, be able to play all of that, get that inside you, and keep learning the whole lineage of the music, and then you have the right to start doing your own thing. And until you've done that, you do not have the right to go do your own thing. Okay? That's what I was taught. And there was all sorts of connotations from that. I've mentioned this before. It got the racial tensions in those days regarding some of this music was very, very high. There were white people who said, what are you doing playing jazz? Because it's an African-American form of music. I had black people saying, what are you doing? African-American people saying, you can't play jazz because it's our music, it's not your music. What the hell are you doing? Okay. And then there were people in the middle, both black and white, who would sit there and go, no, it's fine. What's important is understanding the music and really being true to that, because your racial makeup shouldn't matter, assuming you really have a deep understanding of what this music is. Okay? Those kind of conversations, talk about uncomfortable conversations. And look, there are some folks who are just never going to give you a break. And, they're just not. I think a lot of musicians have run into that. I have to admit, to some degree, it's one of the reasons I'm less and less interested in jazz, is I think it has gone so far away from its origins. Like my friend spoke of, the tendrils have snapped, and now whatever they're doing is an entirely other thing. I'll give you another example. If I love meditation, folks, there's an American form of Buddhist meditation, American Buddhism. And those folks, and I give them great credit, because American Buddhist meditation has almost no connection with the Buddhism of Southeast Asia. All of the tradition and all of that and the religion aspect has been removed. But to the credit of the folks here in the States who do this, they will tell you that right up front, that they're interested in is the mental state, learning about what's going on in your mind, the process of doing this. They've removed that part, the part that they like, and got rid of the rest. That's fine. One, if you say so, if you're upfront about it, and you rename it so that everyone knows you're not saying I'm that. Because if you did, you're trying to use their reputation to enhance yours. It's fundamentally dishonest. You can, if you've paid your dues and you understand, okay, that's not to say anybody outside of a culture can't go and join that culture, can't go and learn that stuff and do it. Happens all the time. It's good and it's to be encouraged. That's not the problem. It's not to say you have to stay in your lane. It's not a stay in your lane argument at all. All sorts of people have crossed all these things. It's great. It's great, right? Assuming, with the assumption that you really are doing that thing. Gordon Ramsay cooking pad thai. It's a great video where he was with a master chef and said, okay, look what I've got here. And the guy tasted it and looked at him and Ramsay was like, but it's good. Isn't it good? And the guy said, yeah, it's good. I don't care, it's good. It's not this. It's okay you've done your own thing. It's not this. If you're trying to do this, then you haven't done it. So if he had done it, I think the Thai guy would have been fine with him. Last couple thoughts, I'll let you guys be. Because I do think this is tough stuff. Extremely nuanced. Very easy to get tripped up. Very easy. Okay? And I do want to emphasize, I love the fact that people cross-pollinate. I love the fact that you could be influenced by anything. Influence is great. And it's going to happen. That cross-pollination is going on all the time. It's fine. Right? Changes things, but that's necessary. Part of the whole thing. Again, all that's fine. But if it comes a point where you're stealing the thing and you really can't do the thing, that's where we get into some trouble here. I think that's the point. One of my conversations about the whole subject, I found this very interesting. It was a guy who does Muay Thai. He's a Muay Thai dude. And he was talking about, he said, I feel this great connection between Muay Thai and jazz. I said, I love it. I don't see it. What are you seeing? Because you're seeing something I don't see. I can't, because I don't know Muay Thai enough. What am I missing? Because I'm missing something. What am I missing? And he's like, both of those things came from an oppressed culture. It was a response to oppression. He goes, and the cultures that actually created that aren't even there anymore. And one of the things, he goes, in Muay Thai's case, the thing that ruined it is probably its own popularity in other parts of the world, in the West. And those values now coming back killed it. He goes, it's what it was. The culture can't even produce that anymore. The time has passed. Time has gone on. He goes, we can respect it, we can understand, but it is essentially, and he goes, he goes, I have a feeling there's some similarities to that with jazz. The generation that created the culture that it came out of hasn't existed in many, 100 years. Since the real inception, Louis Armstrong in Chicago to play with King Oliver. That world is gone, and thus the impetus, you're never going to be on the first floor again. Okay. Last thing I'll throw at you. Last example. Some years ago, I was a sideman in a guitar player's band, jazz guitar player's band, and he had a gig at a club in the East Village near St. Mark's, might have been on St. Mark's, some cellar club. It was myself and a sax player, and it was okay. And we did that for a while. Okay. And it became like an open jam. It was really an open jam. We would do a set, and then they would bring people up. But we were the house band. And it wasn't just a rhythm section. Me as a horn player and the sax player, we got to play. Great. And sometimes we'd sit in on some of the tunes later on, and it was fun. At some point, the guitar player left. He quit, didn't want to do it anymore. And the club came to me and said, well, we don't want to lose the jam session. We want to keep it going. And we don't want to hire a whole bunch of new guys. Why don't you run the band? And I was like, jazz jam sessions were very formative for me many years ago. So I had an idea about what it should be, but I was very cautious because to some degree you have to be a heavy. And talk about being the gatekeeper. To some degree, you have to be careful because there are a lot of people who can't play yet you need to give them the opportunity to improve themselves so that they will. It's how you do improve yourself. So it's going to get ugly sometimes, but that's okay. It's part of the process. Okay. But sometimes it's going to be so ugly that you need to tell someone, okay, no more choruses for you here. You're done. I was not comfortable, but I didn't want to lose the gig either. So I said, yeah, let's do it. And a lot of it was great. The guys would show up in New York City. They're great players, right? But there were exceptions, right? There was this piano player who came, and almost from the first, it reminded me, when I saw Raygun, I was reminded of this person. This person came on, and it was a train wreck from the get-go. Didn't seem to know the tunes. If you're going to play jazz standards in a jam session so that everyone can perform, everyone's going to be able to keep in time and know the tunes, and usually without music, and be able to, okay, we're going to call this, you've got to be moment's notice. You've got to be ready to play moment's notice. You've got to know it. You've got to know, particularly rhythm section players, got to know all the chords. Be able to play in tempo, boom, 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 support the soloist, boom, boom, and their own time, boom, 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 get back out of it, boom, boom, boom. You've got to have those basic skills, right? And this person seemed to know nothing. It was just playing free jazz. It was, bad, and okay, and the tune was done. We said, okay, that's it. And they were like, that's it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you. And we moved on. Problem was, and what was extraordinary to me was, this person didn't seem to understand. Really didn't seem to. It was amazing. How could you not? And it was amazing. The lack of awareness was breathtaking, but kept coming back. And we'd see if it got better, and it didn't get better. It was more, and I finally had to sit this person down and said, I want to talk to you. And they said, oh, why are you going to get on my case? I said, no, I don't want to get on your case. This is not about getting on your case. I honestly don't understand. Okay? Well, what is it? And I said, I don't think you know the music, right? And you're not in time, and He goes, well, I'm imaginative and I'm free and I'm feeling. And I realized that this person wasn't lying. They were having a very strong reaction to the music. The emotion was all there. They were feeling it deeply. Okay. But they were a classic dilettante, right? They had all the emotion and none of the technique. The opposite is to be a pedant. All the technique's fantastic. Had nothing to say. Right now we're in a phase where there's a lot of that. Right? There's always a tension between the two. But this person was the classic dilettante. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Felt it. And I had to have a conversation and say, I get that you feel it, but this isn't a free jazz thing where you just do whatever you, it's not. But it's being creative. It's great. That's great. But in a particular form, in a particular style, you have to be able to do that style. Or else this is not, you should go someplace where they're going to do free stuff and you can do that there. But this isn't the right forum for that. It's a forum to do a very specific kind of thing. And it's not fair to the other people who are trying to stay within that style if you're, you kind of have to be able to do that. That's a basic requirement. And this was like a revelation to this person. Now, this person eventually disappeared. I felt bad on one level. I hated to have to give that message to somebody. But it was extraordinary to me that this was news. But you can't participate in a thing if you're not even close to doing the thing. I got a lot of good perspective. My friend who was a music reviewer, the Muay Thai guy, other people who were in the hip hop world who were clearly more upset. My own experiences helped inform things, I think. I don't want to, again, I'm wrong messenger, wrong optics. I'm not of that world. I do not claim, but I don't claim expertise that I don't have it. But I will listen to other folks and try to improve myself and try to have a better understanding. But boy, there was a lot of room there for a lot of discussion. And I think there's, again, I want to respect the original cultures. And at the same time, I also want to allow people to cross cultures. Again, I think there's got to be some, not hard guardrails at all, but some guidance at least to, if you're going to jump into this other thing, then, you really need to be humble before it and learn it. And if you want to do your own thing and you don't want to build all those, you could be influenced by things in a light way and go off and do your own thing, which is great. Influence isn't a problem. Appreciating a culture isn't bad at all. That's great. When it crosses into this line where now it's putting on an act instead of being genuine, then it turns into a problem. So I think a lot of folks, I'm sure there are right-wing folks that would run with the Raygun thing and say what a terrible, and I very quick to say what a terrible. I think there was a misguided decision. She should not have been performing there, and she should have. And I'm amazed that I think she knew going in that this wasn't probably going to land, wanting to do it anyway. Really a lapse of judgment there, who's by a person who's not stupid, but maybe great in the classroom, but that doesn't make you a performer. It's a different skill set. So, a lot to chew on. Thanks. This is a long one. If you've hung in this long, thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, give it up to... Do this for me, man. Listen, if nothing else. I just burned for like 55 minutes. You got to give me something for that. 54 and a half. Okay. But hang on. I did all right. So lots to talk about. Again, I sincerely hope I'm not pissing a lot of people off. don't want to. Again, I know that I may not be the right messenger for a lot of these things, but I also sit there and go, we can't shy away from the topics. At least, and if I'm wrong and I've gotten something wrong, my ears are wide open. I want to get other perspectives, and I don't think there's an easy answer. Again, extremely tricky stuff. I don't think I've come up with it. I'm not saying you should think what I think. I'm not saying that at all. If anything, I'd like to kick off in your own mind, use this as a chance to really clarify your own ideas. How do I feel about that? Where is my line? Because your line's going to be different from mine, and that's okay. Especially on this sort of tricky stuff. But thinking about it, talking about it, having the conversation about it is better than saying, oh, we can't talk about those things because... No. I'd rather be talking about it. I think it's better. That's what I got for you guys. Listen, give me a like. Do me a, break me off something. Give me a sub. I can use some of that. But yeah, that's what's on my mind tonight. All right, talk to you guys soon. I'll go get my kid into college. I'm gonna miss him. Man, it's gonna suck. So let me go do that. Look, he's gonna be great. He's gonna do well, but I gotta go do that. And get into another phase. And I'll be rooting from afar and just hearing how he's doing. Oh my God, can't believe I'm going through this. And then, in probably a week or two, something else will have come up. There'll be some great cultural outrage that will need to be discussed. Take care, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the last bit of summer. We're going into the dark times. For some reason, I'm looking forward to it this fall. This is always the one I hate the most, but this year I think it's going to be okay this year. Talk to you guys. Take care now.